Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Golding. I'm one of the 8th grade trip advisors. I apologize in advance for my child screaming in the background. I'm here tonight to talk about our Philadelphia and New York trip and is Zoom, the chat feature on the side of your screen, and I will try to keep my eyes on that as I go through the presentation. If some students are watching tonight, you see my screen in front of you. That shows you the 8th grade Google Classroom that I created today. And if you notice, all of the information on there for the trip is there. So there's the Philadelphia, New York City packet. There's the packet again in Spanish. And then there's the COVID requirements, which I'll talk about in a minute, that you can refer to as I speak about the trip. So those are there for your reference. I'm going to change my screen now and head over to my presentation. Thank you for your patience. As you can see in front of you, this is our 8th grade trip on May 5th to 6th. That's a Thursday and a Friday. Dr. Reynolds will be joining us any moment. He's going to jump on and say a couple things about the trip and our procedures and processes. It is 2 full days and 1 night. So students will be engaged in tons of activities over the course of 2 days, and we'll also just be staying in a hotel for 1 night. As you can see on the left side of the screen, there are some photos of Philadelphia. There's that iconic love sign, the Liberty Bell, and on the bottom, my face is probably covering it, but that's the National Constitution Center that has words of the Constitution actually printed on the side of the building. And then on the right-hand column, we have One World Trade, Come From Away, which is the Broadway show we're going to be seeing. And on the bottom, underneath the words May 5th through 6th, is a quote from the 9/11 Museum, which we'll be visiting as well. So I'm going to just turn it over to Dr. Reynolds for a second to have to say a couple words.
Good evening, 8th grade parents. We are very excited. I think Ms. Golding probably shared this in her opening, but we're very excited to be able to have our overnight field trips back this year. I know sometimes there will be some additional hoops to jump through, but all in the with the purpose of safety in mind, just like we were able to get our 7th graders to go to Nature's Classroom, which they're finishing up this week. We had some additional PCR testing, some rapid testing, some requirements around cohorting students, things along those lines, and screening for screening purposes. But they're having a blast. And I know our 8th graders have been through the ringer, so to speak, with their middle school experience. Last year they were able to have a day trip here and there, or just experience outside. But we're really excited to have them go to 2 separate cities, experience that overnight end of middle school culminating experience. I know Sarah and a number of other staff have put in and will continue to put in a good deal of time in preparation for this to make it an exciting experience. There are some requirements that Ms. Golding will go through during this presentation, and you'll probably have some questions as we approach May. So just kind of take it all in. Make sure you take any notes that you need to, and reach out to her and or me. Ms. Amaral will be actually going on this field trip with our 8th graders. So she'll be the admin support to May 5th and 6th. So obviously she'll be involved as we get closer to. So just take some notes, ask any questions you need. I know we have the YouTube comments in there too, so we'll do the best we can. And even if we don't know the answer to any of the questions, we'll take them down and make sure we address them over the course of the next few months. So we're very excited. There are going to be some requirements that we're going to have to kind of deal with and work through, but we're confident that we have enough time, that we're out ahead of it. Is in November, and this trip is not till May, so we're out ahead of it enough, and that's thanks to Mrs. Golding, that we can deal with and cross any bridge that comes across or comes along. So thank you, and thank you for support for tonight, and we look forward to a great trip. And I'll shoot it back over to Ms. Golding.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. So the presentation you're about to see is the same presentation that the students saw today during the day, with a couple added slides in that were more that was more parental information that I did not share with the kids. Again, if you're just joining us, I do apologize for the noise in the background. My toddler's running around the room, pressing every toy that makes sound. It was quiet right before we started, so I'm sure you all can relate at some point. So like I said, on the left-hand column, we have some pictures of Philadelphia, and on the right-hand side, we have pictures of some of the attractions that we're going to visit in Manhattan. Our next slide just is my email address. You can contact me there if you have any questions. Email is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me, goldings@norwalkps.org. And students, check your Google Classroom for an invite to the class of 2022 group. All trip information is posted there and will be going forward. We will use the page throughout the course of the year, towards the end of the year when promotion and other fun things start to happen. It's a great way for us to communicate with all of you at the click of a button. So it's super easy to get information out to everybody as fast as we can. Day 1 of the trip, that's May 5th, Thursday morning, we're visiting Philadelphia. The buses leave West Rocks very early. I told the students 6:30 a.m.-ish to try to avoid that morning rush hour traffic on I-95. Obviously, that's before the school day begins. Our first activity on the trip is a walking tour of Philadelphia, which includes the area where the Liberty Bell is and Independence Hall. And if you're not aware, that's where they did a lot of the preparation and the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Students that day will pack a bag lunch. We'll go picnic style in the Independence Park area and eat out. And then our afternoon is spent at the National Constitution Center. Like I had mentioned really early on at the presentation, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence are all very important events and features of the social studies curriculum in grade 8. So students will be discussing a lot of these things in class before we actually attend the trip. So they'll be prepared to experience a lot of that information. Dinner that evening is at the American Dream Mall. If you're familiar with it, it's next to MetLife Stadium. It is in New Jersey, so it's a substantial drive from Philadelphia back to Jersey. But what's really nice is it's right next to our hotel in the same area, which makes check-in later in the evening a lot easier. We're actually staying at the Sheraton in Weehawken, New Jersey. And for those of you who don't know, Weehawken is actually the town, I think it's a township where Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr had their famous duel. So some more historical significance even in where we're staying in our hotel. Right across the Hudson from like our hotel, you can look out the windows and see New York City. And day 2 is, Good Morning New York. We're there. We're getting up early. We're spending the morning at the 9/11 Museum. We're going to have lunch in Lower Manhattan at a nearby mall, which has a food court. The afternoon will be spent at One World Trade, and we're going until the students all the way to the top, which is, if it's a clear day, has fantastic views of of Manhattan, the other boroughs. And if it's really, really clear, you can even see some of the Connecticut coast. Dinner that evening is in Times Square at the Hard Rock Cafe. And our trip concludes with a Broadway show at 7 p.m., Come From Away, which I explained to the students is the story of a little town in Newfoundland called Gander. And if you're not aware, on 9/11, when they had to ground a lot of the commercial airlines, about 37 or 38 planes landed at their tiny little airport. Years ago, when transatlantic transportation first started, Gander was the actual last fuel stop if you were making a trip across the Atlantic. So if you were coming from somewhere like California or the West Coast, you would stop in Gander, refuel, and then take off again. But once technology and aviation had evolution and they didn't need to do that anymore, Gander just became this little town on a map that the only time you went to the airport there was going in and out of the town. So very small community that opened its doors to a lot of strangers at a really hard time when a lot of the world was struggling. So it's a great message, great music, and I think the students will really enjoy that performance. Some of the trip requirements, Dr. Reynolds and I have, discussed this at length, but we really feel like this trip is a privilege, and it's important that students be in good academic standing in order to miss it's actually 2 days of instructional time. Please note that any student that's failing any subject at the end of the second quarter will be put on academic probation, and will have a individualized plan that will require them to obtain signatures from teachers. We'll review that plan consistently, and at the end of the third quarter, that plan will be reviewed again. If the student has shown growth, they will be able to attend the trip. If the student is still failing, there's going to be a case-by-case review by myself, Dr. Reynolds, and Mr. Albano, who is the other trip advisor for 8th grade. Students must also be in good standing in terms of behavior and attendance. I think many of you are aware, at least students you are, that this week we kind of are enforcing a new policy with our tardy to class. So students who have excess absences and or those tardies by the point of the trip may have some issues with their attending the trip because excessive absences and excessive tardies take away from instructional time. And while the trip is fun and educational, that is also taking away from some instructional time. So if we feel that you really need to be in school, then the trip might not be an option for you at that point. I think this is the part that I have to say is probably one of the more challenging aspects of the trip. There's some COVID-19 requirements. I've planned trips for years. I've traveled the country with large groups of students, and health and safety has always been one of my top concerns, but now even more so. New York City, if you're not aware, has a mandate called the Key to NYC, which states that students, adults 12 and older, are required to show some sort of identification and proof that they have received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine to be able to participate in indoor dining, indoor fitness, and or indoor entertainment and meeting spaces. Since we're meeting and visiting attractions like Broadway theater, a museum, restaurants, things across those lines, we need to have proof of vaccination for every adult and student who attends the trip. So that can be in the form of the CDC vaccination card, a digital photo or a photocopy, or I told the students they should really have a picture of it on their phone, which they will have with them on the trip. I actually will have a request at some point a photocopy of their proof of vaccination, just so I have it for my records and will have access to it while the students are on the trip. This way, they're not responsible for it. I do ask not to give me the original CDC vaccination card. Just a copy would suffice. Hotel information. The students are allowed to select at least one student who they will be guaranteed to be placed together in a room. Rooms are quad occupancy, which means 4 students of the same gender in the same room. Girls are on one floor of the hotel and boys are on a separate floor, and students are not allowed on the opposite gender's floor. Students found violating the policy will be referred to administration on the trip. Students are only allowed in their assigned hotel room. That used to be really because of a safety concern. Now it's more of a health and safety concern. So there is no visiting other rooms. We're really not in the hotel very long for them to even have the opportunity to do so. The chaperone in charge will conduct nightly check-ins and secure your room. Students found exiting their room after check-in will be referred to administration, and that's immediate, like calling of a parent, having you come pick up your child. Students will be able to contact their chaperone via the hotel phone in case of an emergency. Students requiring any medical assistance or any type of prescribed medication will check in with the assigned chaperone before checking in that evening. Students will be given a private area to meet with the chaperone, for example, a location in the lobby or a meeting space where students can take any type of medication before proceeding up to their hotel room. Like I said, we spend very little time at the hotel. We're really there to sleep and shower. So we do ask that students abide by the rules. You know, I didn't say this to the students, but it's one of the things I save as we get closer. We're not the only guests of the hotel. Sometimes, especially in areas in big cities, more so before, but maybe now, we have business people who are traveling and need to attend meetings, and, people who are visiting family from out of town. They don't want to hear middle school students at 2 a.m. hooting and hollering and making it hard for them to sleep. So, what is a nice feature about the company that we monitors the two floors that we're on, and really just listens in for any problems, and they're there just to work with our group, which is a nice thing that makes us feel a little extra safe about having the students in different rooms. I know this is really small, so I apologize in advance if it's difficult to see. But field trips are an extension of the classroom. And like Dr. Reynolds said, we're so excited to be able to offer this to students again. I know these sixth graders missed out on a year-end sixth grade trip. They missed out on attending nature's classroom, like at a different location. So we really wanted to try to do something special, like he said, maintaining health and safety. But also another concern was really trying to keep the cost down. Trips can get very expensive when you start visiting multiple places, and cities like New York and Philadelphia, everything costs money. Years ago, we visited Washington, D.C., and I'm not sure if you're aware, but many of the attractions there are free. We just felt like it was a really long distance to travel at this point in time, with a lot of things still unknown and things still opening up. But we really enforce all Norwalk Public School rules and West Rock's rules during the entire trip. Any prescription or non-prescription medications have to be administered by a teacher or designated chaperone. We'll spend a lot of time talking about that as we get closer to the trip. I also made it very clear to the students that West Rocks and myself and Dr. Reynolds and the other adults on the trip are not responsible for valuables that are lost or stolen. That especially includes cell phones. Students are encouraged to be aware of their personal property and really not to bring anything of value that could possibly be broken, lost, stolen. School issued Chromebooks should not be on the trip. The Verizon devices, students will not need them, so they can stay at home. Dress code policies are in effect. We are attending a Broadway show, which doesn't require specific dress code, but it also theater etiquette not to be in like pajama pants. So students should be thinking about that as they pack. We're going to be doing a lot of walking, so appropriate footwear is really important. Sneakers are the best bet. As it gets warm in May, early May, it could go either way with weather, but it would be really nice. Ladies especially want to wear sandals and do other things fashionable, but it's sometimes not practical when you're walking and doing a lot of the things that we're going to be doing. Chaperones are important. um, to the success of our trip. Oops, sorry. And we need to give the chaperones the same courtesy and the respect we would. Um, while on the trip, you represent West Rocks Middle School, and students will follow all guidelines for behavior as set by the chaperones and the establishment. Sorry, my other child just ran into the room. Matthew and Jack, go see Daddy downstairs. He has something for you. We expect to be proud of you at all times, and students need to use language and behaviors that are respectful and appropriate. And this includes being polite to each other, any attraction personnel, tour guides, chaperones. Students must travel in groups of 4 or more, just as a safety concern. Students will be assigned not only to the group that they're staying in the room with, but also 3 of those groups get assigned to a particular chaperone. So our ratio is anywhere from 12 or 10 students to 1 adult, which is a very good ratio to be traveling around large cities with. And at various points in time, students are required to check in with chaperones at designated areas. Some of the museums and attractions, the chaperone will be with them the entire time, especially at the 9/11 Museum. I spoke with the students this morning and we talked about how the atmosphere there is a little more somber than some of the other attractions that we're going to visit, and how they may see some adults having emotional reactions to images and things. So we just need to be aware that it's really not the place to fool around, and we expect a high level of maturity from the students as we visit that location. The cost of the trip is $390. Interestingly enough, it happens to be the exact same cost as Nature's Classroom. So the students who are away this week paid $390. Now I understand that is a full week, but they are at one location. Um, and it covers their meals, but we're visiting a lot of attractions and a Broadway show. And like I said to the students, it does start to add up when you need tickets to things and the hotel. We have a coach bus at our disposal for 2 straight days with a driver. We also have the security guard. So there's a lot of little extra costs factored in. This $390 does include meals. It includes breakfast at the hotel in the morning and dinner in Times Square Friday evening. So students will only need money for dinner on Thursday at the American Dream Mall and lunch on Friday in Lower Manhattan. Remember, we are bringing a bag lunch on Thursday, so that should help cut some costs down because you will have brought your lunch with you. But that $390 really does cover almost the entire trip. We like to set up a payment plan. We are not asking for all the money at once. If that's something you feel that works best for your family because you just want to pay it and take care of it, whatever works best for families is what works best for us. Students should have brought home a packet to you, including a blue registration form. If you're willing and able right now, you're going to return that blue form if you're interested, and a $100 deposit. Or you're returning the blue form and you have checked that you're requesting financial aid on the very bottom of that form. And if you make that $100 deposit, there's another $100 payment in January and then February, and the remaining balance of $90 is due by March 15th. So the trip has to be paid in full by March 15th in order for me to make my deadline of paying the company by not, and families are not taxed with another expense. Our fundraiser in December is Pop and Popcorn. I've done it for years. The PTA actually did it last year. It will be in a brochure form and it will also be online. So you can have family and friends from all over the country support. But 50% of whatever the total sales are can be applied right directly to your trip. So for example, if you sell $100 worth of popcorn and candy, there's some candy items, $50 of that goes for us to actually pay for the popcorn, and the other 50 goes towards your trip. 2 2 years ago. It seems like so long ago. But when we shut down for COVID, we were about a month away from our trip to Boston with eighth grade, and the trip was fully refundable. But we did come across an issue where with Newark Public Schools and their policy that all fundraising is non-refundable. What that means is you, when you're selling things, are raising money for West Rocks on your own behalf. So in the event of any type of cancellation, that money that was fundraised would follow the student to high school to cover any type of class dues or other expenses and would not be directly refunded to the family. We can answer more questions about that specifically if you have any concerns with that via email. Questions. These were the big three with the students. Can I choose who's in my hotel room? That was obviously a concern. Yes, they want to be with their friends. We want them to be with their friends. So yes, 4 students in a room. Can I fundraise to pay for the trip? Yes. I've had students in the past on other trips that paid for the entire trip, full price, with just fundraising. We do offer financial assistance, and we do the best we can to help families. We try to help as many families as we can with the funding we have, and the PTA is very generous with offering support for us, as well as our recent sportathon has also given us some extra funds to help students. And the last big question is again, do I need to have received the COVID-19 vaccine to attend? Yes. However, students can, by that point, if they've only received 1 dose, they still qualify to go on the trip. Like I said to the students, these are mandates put out by the city of New York, not by Norwalk Public Schools and not by West Rocks Middle School. So in the event, hopefully, we all are hoping that there's a light at the end of this COVID tunnel. I can't predict that things will just drastically change overnight, but May is a while away and things can change, and the city of New York can change their mandate. At any point in time, if your child is unvaccinated and that mandate switches, there is always room for students on the trip. Like we plan on bringing as many students that want to go, and I don't really need to give them a final head count until probably close to that February payment. So there's still time to decide as a family what works best for you guys in terms of making the decision and the financial aspect.
Just real quick, I am hopeful that we will be able to offer vaccination at West Rocks, just like we did last year. We anticipate a January 1st dose with a February 2nd dose, like with the spacing appropriately. They had a tentative date earlier in the fall, but we are hopeful that we will be offering it just like we did last year, the doses of vaccines at West Rocks. When those dates are confirmed, I'll communicate those out. So again, like Ms. Golding said, yes, it is a mandate by the state of New York. So we're going to have to adhere to it, but we're hopeful that we can offer it to our students at West Rocks. So just kind of stay tuned for that.
I see a couple questions in the chat and I just want to address them. Is there breakfast at the hotel in the morning? Yes. I believe the hotel provides a continental breakfast, and on our trips that we've done similar to this in the past, they've given us like a private, almost like one of their conference rooms or ballrooms at a hotel, and they've set up a private breakfast for us since we were such a large group, that was separate from the breakfast that was provided for the other hotel guests. There's another question about how many students in a room and will they each have their own bed. So the price is based off quad occupancy. When we traveled to Washington, D.C. a few years ago, there was actually 2 queens and a pull-out couch. The hotels will not have obviously more than 4 in a room. We did have a couple rooms of 3 based on student needs and enrollment on the trip. So it's flexible. However, if there was some specific accommodations that needed to be made, there may be some type of price adjustment there. New York, I told the students today, New York City hotels in that area of New Jersey, a hotel room is usually a little bit smaller than like your typical hotel room. So I'm in constant contact with the tour company. So if any of that were to change in terms of occupancy in a hotel room or any type of thing, I would be reaching out to you guys immediately. And just so you know too, um, the guidelines in the hotel, their own COVID guidelines do allow for that quad occupancy in the room, and we would adhere to any specific mandate put forth by the hotel if it was something different. Like I said earlier in the presentation, I know you probably have a lot of questions. You want to discuss things as a family. Um, I can let you know. Somebody just asked, please let us know how much it would be if we chose a double occupancy room rather than like a quad. I will find that information out. I cannot promise that it will be an option based on blocks, like in a hotel room, like they've reserved a block of rooms for us. So based on amount of students we have, they only have certain amount of rooms for us. So if the hotel is already sold out or has other issues, like I can't make any guarantees, but I will get back to families to answer that question if there would be a price change for a double occupancy room. If anything, it would probably be a triple if there was a pull-out couch, and then this way every student would have their own bed. But I will, like I said, research the answer to that question and get back to families as soon as I can. I know we've been on for about a half an hour, and I don't want to keep anybody on. I know you have the rest of the evening and things to do. Like we said, please reach out with any questions directly to either Dr. Reynolds, myself. Mr. Albano's name is there also, Albano G at norwalkps.org. His name is on the cover letter of the packet. He helped me plan the last 2 trips, so he's very knowledgeable about procedures and can answer any of your questions directly. If students have payments and blue forms to turn in, they're welcome to come find me down in the music wing, or they can drop it off in the main office. I do ask that if a student is dropping it off, that the form and the money be in an envelope with their name on the front. I also have the ability to write a receipt if anybody is paying in cash. The last question says, what time would you arrive back to Connecticut? Come From Away starts at 7 p.m. on Friday night, and it's at about an hour and 45-minute show. I anticipate loading buses and getting on the road a little after 9. And on that time of evening on a Friday, it's a hit or miss with traffic. I would imagine we would be arriving back somewhere between 10:15 and 10:30 on Friday evening. And we will send them home very tired, and they will be sleeping very late on Saturday morning. It's just 2 full jam-packed days. And like I said, I've done this for a long time. And in my experience, the busier they are and on the go they are, the less opportunity they have to have any type of issue. So no downtime is very good for a chaperone. They have to be a certain place in a certain time, and that works well for everyone. So like we said, we're very excited. We hope that you'll, take this opportunity to have your student join us. It's a rewarding experience. A lot of students, I remember my middle school trips. They were great. So like we said, we'll do everything we can to help families. And like I said to students today, and I stand by this, financial concerns, money, any of that type of thing should never be an obstacle that prevents you from participating in an event like this. So if you're interested, if you're interested for your child, please reach out and we'll do everything we can to get your child to be a part of this amazing experience. I don't know if Dr. Reynolds has anything to say, but we appreciate your time and coming out to hear what we have to say, and we look forward to a great year ahead.
Yeah, just to conclude, it is the beginning of November, and this trip is until the beginning of May, right? So we have 6 months, and I appreciate all of the hard work of Sarah, Ms. Golding, and Mr. Albano, and some of the other staff that have done some thinking on this and planning, just because There is a lot to think about and consider, a lot to fundraise, some of the safety requirements that take some planning and decision making. So we have 6 months to do so. And in that time, if there are questions that you have or concerns or just things you want to talk about, just to make sure that you're clear and you have all of the information, please reach out to any one of us or all of us, me, Miss Amaral as well, Miss Golding, Mr. Albano, any of the four. And if we don't have the answer right off the top of our head, we will get that answer and at least answer to the best of our ability. And so, again, we have 6 months. We're really excited about it. And I just wanted to underscore what Ms. Golding just said. $400 is a lot of money, but it is a great experience. So if there's any way that we can support and help and make sure that all students have the opportunity to have access to this experience, please reach out and we will accommodate and work with you, and we will work with every family individually. So with that, have a wonderful night. Tomorrow is Friday. And have a wonderful weekend. I can't believe it's already November.